My name is Monk Rowe for the Phileas Jazz Archive, and very pleased to have bassist Tony Marino with me today. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure
Hello.
to have you. I'd like to start out with a quote I read, and I'm going to use a blank for the name. It was from Dave Liebman. Dave Liebman said, I may have said three words to blank about how or what to play. He's the most distinctive musician I have known. Who do you think Dave was talking about?
Well, just I guess my ability off the cuff and to respond,
Uh-huh.
basically.
Yes.
Nothing stellar, but definitely I had my moments. So
What musicians and jazz players especially talk about being in the moment. When you say respond to things, can you describe how that works to people who don't really understand it?
well, we all know a language, a basic language. We all grown up playing song forms. We've touched base on playing with no song form. Now, song form, what I mean is a definite set of rules that we play with, and we all know a lot of the same song forms. So you could be in a country like Japan and not be able to speak a word to a guy, but you start playing Autumn Leaves, and everybody knows what to do immediately. And we go off of, for instance, if I think of Autumn Leaves, I think of Miles Davis immediately, and I think of his introduction with the G minor sixth chord and that whole Latin thing. And or no, you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking of the other tune, Blackbird. But anyway, Autumn Leaves, I definitely think of those bands. So our ears all go to that area, you know, stuff that we've listened to, and we can all relate by that. So on the bandstand, um, we're definitely choosing and picking stuff that to get us started. So licks, if you will, or riffs. We'll use stuff like that when we're improvising. The melody is another thing, and we'll use the melody in improvisation too, besides the chords. But we're listening very hard to each other. So we were trying to get somewhere that we haven't gone before, a space ride, if you will. But
Yeah.
uh, so we're listening hard, and someone could make a statement, and it could be visual, it could be, audible, whatever it is on the bandstand, and react to it. Or he'll leave space. That's another great thing that we have on the bandstand is space. So, and how to use space. So, a great horn player will leave space for the rhythm section to do something with it. So that's our opportunity. Now there's three other rhythm section members normally uh, that are participating. So you got to be sensitive as to when to jump in and do your thing. But you could be a leader of of uh, of this movement, or you can stand back and go for the ride. So
Has
I don't
the,
know if that.
has the role of the main timekeeper changed over the decades? And I guess I should precede that with who do you think is the main timekeeper in the band?
That's a good question. That's been thrown around a lot. A lot of ways I could say it's me, the bass player, but I mean the drummer's basically he's the orchestrator. He's creating the colors, but when I'm playing, I'm listening hard to where he's putting the time. So I want to match with him. I want to groove. A lot of our music is groove. There's other aspects of our music that's not groove, that's rubato and up in the air and ethereal and whatever other adjective I can come up with. But for sure, the I'm listening hard to the drummer and matching where we are, so we create a groove, and we could go anywhere. We could change the groove. We could double it up. We could go slower. I mean, there's all kinds of excitement. And part of that Dave Liebman group, since you brought his name up, he really encouraged that kind of movement. And for a keyboard player or guitar player, he wanted a lot of times harmony thrown at him. He didn't want the norm ever. And I think that comes with him playing with Miles Davis, you know. And our band, I think, was pretty closely associated with Miles Davis's band, you know. I'm speaking of the later band with, you know, Herbie and Ron and Tony and Wayne.
This will be totally speculative, but you've played with some marvelous saxophone players over the years, and I'm thinking in my mind comparing like Zoot Sims with Dave Liebman. So Zoot
Yeah.
Sims probably came early in your career.
Yeah. Well, I used to, you know, being here in Pennsylvania, Phil Wood's band was in town, you know, and Phil lived in Delaware Water Gap, and his rhythm section guys lived in the Poconos. So I was associated with them, and it's word of mouth musicians, you know. And also in our area, I should say, Al Cohn. Uh, Al Cohn, I was at a restaurant playing somewhere, and he liked me. So that was the first gig I ever played in New York City was with him at Fat Tuesdays, a club called Fat Tuesdays, and we played downstairs. And so that meeting, and this bass player, Phil Wood's bass player, Steve Gilmore, would recommend me for things, you know. And I got to play with Zoot with Al. It was one of the Zoot's last gigs actually at the Blue Note, and I was thrilled to be part of it. And we sat in the, I remember sitting in the what do you call the green room upstairs at the Blue Note, and uh, him complaining about young musicians not knowing tunes, not wanting to know tunes, not learning enough tunes. Well, that was basically part of our discussion while he hit a little vodka on the side there.
Why would a young musician not find knowing tunes worthwhile? I mean, it's
Well, that's a good question.
mindset.
I did learn them. I mean, I did gigs where you had to. It was dance, a lot of times dance music, and you'd have to play medleys of tunes. You know, Frank Sinatra's songbook. You know, and I learned to fake as well. You know, so I got away with murder in a lot of ways. You know, because I faked. You know, but I mean, all the older musicians, I should say, they all knew those tunes. I mean, that was you had to know those tunes. And I think the younger guys is what they're listening to. You know, they're listening to Train, maybe later Train, or you know, Miles, the later groups, you know, or the fusion bands of the '70s. You know, I missed the '60s. I was a kid, you know, so '70s was where I was really starting to play professionally, and uh, you know, my like for like say fusion music, which I enjoyed, which took me from rock music. Uh, I wanted to know how those guys learned what they learned. And so then I heard about Charlie Parker, I heard about, you know, Miles Davis. So I went backwards in time, you know, to find out where, you know, we're always, you know, want after the virtuosity, you know, a guy that can really, you know, kill his instrument. And one of the guys for me, of course, was New York State's Scott LaFaro, you know. Of course, we all I mean, he ruined a lot of bass players, I guess, for band leaders. Yeah.
Okay, you have to explain that.
Well, okay. Scott LaFaro was a heavy member of Bill Evans' trio, piano trio, and Bill had a new concept, which was the bass player doesn't hold the timekeeping role, which you mentioned before. He's more of a counterpoint player, you know, and more of a soloist. And Scott was a genius, you know, also a heavy practitioner. He practiced a lot. So he was able to do horn-like riffs on the bass, and we marveled at his virtuosity, you know. And stories I've heard, I wasn't there, you know, I never got to see him play live, but stories I heard was when Bill Evans Trio played live, there was, you know, a long line of bass players going in to hear him play, and they were all crazy. So when they got on their gigs, whether it's a dance gig or whatever, they tried to imitate him, and the band leaders were going nuts because they weren't playing time. They weren't playing the dance music
The dance,
time.
the dancers were falling down.
Yeah, they want the solo and play in the upper register. So the bottom of the band would drop out.
You know,
We
I
couldn't
think
wait
that
for our moment.
I think that kind of influence has even gone into the current day, where, especially with electric bass players, they have
Oh
the
yeah,
facility to play like a saxophone player, and so
for
they're going
sure.
to.
Well, I equate it more to guitar, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, it's because it's a whole different feel, horizontally playing. And yeah, I mean, electric bass players and guitar players, really get
Well,
along. But yeah, definitely horn players. Yeah.
you started as a guitar player, right?
I started playing as a guitar player because of my dad. Yeah. I want to be a drummer, but I lived in a second story apartment and that wasn't going to happen. And matter of fact, when I got a set of drums, I put them in the basement and there was a gigantic fight. So I had to get rid of them. And I tried rock bands in the cellar, everything, and it didn't work out with my family. So I had to get them out of there and find another place for them. But yeah, so I played a little guitar. I took some lessons, and in junior high, I started with string bass because of my sister's love for Stan Ged's record, which had Astrid Gilberto on it, a girl from Ipanema, and she loved that record. And on the flip side of that record, I remember was Stan's group Swingin'. And one of the songs, the bassist starts off the tune playing the bass line for a blues. I think it was a blues. And I loved it. So when I got to junior high and that was able to get a hold of a string bass, I went right for it. And of course, had known the guitar a little bit, it was easy for me to get in there, except for the large intervals and big strings.
How do you memorize tunes? Because I saw a video of you with Dave Liebman. You're playing Lush Life there
Hmm.
in the famous jazz club there in Delaware Water Gap,
Oh, Deerhead, yeah.
Deerhead. And this is not a question, but it was an observation that the stage looked so small that Dave had to stand on the floor.
Yeah, rhythm section only fit on the
Yeah.
bandstand. Yeah.
But I was thinking, Lush Life is not an easy tune.
No,
If you obviously had no music stand or iPad in front of you. So do you
no, a lot of
remember?
times, no.
Yeah. So the general question is, um, how do you do that? How do you memorize those things?
Well, off of the melody for sure. People will say song title to me and I'll go, oh, I'm not sure. And I'll say, sing it. And once they start singing the melody, I connect. Now, that doesn't hook you up with the bridge necessarily, you know. Um, the old timers would tell me, learn the lyrics, which I never did. I wasn't good at learning the lyrics. Uh, but if you learn the lyrics, you would never forget the bridge. And they had great, little tips to help younger guys out. But I never listened to lyrics. I didn't like Bob Dylan for that reason. I hated his singing, and it took me years to get over that and to appreciate what he was about. And it was because of the bad singing, you know. But the message that he was relaying, and getting into that vibe. That's the other thing that the old timers do in ballads, knowing the lyrics of the song, they really, really get inside of it, and you know, the emotion would flow out of them.
Yeah.
Oh,
I liked it when I would watch a bandstand, and of course it happened to me too. Sometimes the bass player would give the look to the piano player, or vice versa. The bridge is coming up, and
yeah,
you give them the look.
yeah,
You go and,
yeah,
okay, thanks for the look. What does it mean?
yeah. Well, the look means it could mean uh, what's the first chord? What is the bridge? Do you know the bridge? I know the bridge. Whoever the leader is in that moment, we will give and take always on the bandstand. And that goes with if when you're soloing and you're soloing on a tune you don't know well, uh, you have a good accompanist, a great piano player or guitar player. They help. They can sense that I don't know this tune, and maybe I blew a scale tone of a chord, or I'm leading astray. I don't know the melody that well, so my rhythmic phrasing's not together. And they help. They'll throw in and let you use your ear and find yourself, you know. And I kind of consider myself more of an ear player than you know, a musician by rote, you know, or so I use my ear a lot and all through the years that I played, you know.
Mhm.
And playing those dance gigs that I did in the early stages really helped me with that, you know, because I didn't know these tunes. I don't think they expected me to know all of them, but I'd always get help from the piano player. He'd give me a bass note or just give me the first chord ahead of time, a little bit ahead of time, and help. So we're always helping each other rhythm section.
Were those
And
dance gigs like at like resorts, that kind of thing?
yeah,
So did you early on, did someone hip you to the two beat, play two beat, and then later we'll go into four, or that just kind of happened?
absolutely. Yeah. Oh, there was rules. I mean, you know, when I did gigs in the Catskills, I wasn't allowed to go. There's a joke about this too, the Titanic. You probably know the joke, but the
Or
ship
let's
going
play in
down, you
four or
know.
something like that.
Yeah. Like, okay, you can go in the four now when the water's up to your chin. But you know, that was it. You stayed in two, and when he gave me the four fingers, that was okay to swing, you know. But yeah, it was all about dance music, you know, and it got boring for a young musician, you know. I wanted to do what everybody else I was listening to was doing as well, you know. But when we played in the Poconos, our little Garden of Eden was the run to the Deer Head Inn after the gigs, you know. And there was a great piano player that played there every weekend, John Coates, his name was. And
Oh
so we
yes,
would,
he's an author too as well, I think.
oh yeah, he wrote a lot of music for Fred Waring and who was across the street, the Pennsylvania. They had a choral society, and they wrote all kinds of arrangements for choral groups all over the world, you know. So he was part of that. He wrote, but he every weekend he was at Deerhead, and he'd let us sit in, you know. So here, well, you know, I get to play with John Coates and my friend Nelson Hill on saxophone, and I would run as fast as we could to get there, and we would play, and then who knows, like Phil Woods would show up, you know, with his clarinet and his robe, you know, sit in with us and play, you know. It was a great music lesson, you know. All his years of experience and the strength of his sound and uh, you know, conviction of you know, the message he was saying, you know, just make you stand back. You know, you had to listen.
That's such an interesting thing for you to say, and hard to explain to like his intent, his message is, you feel the need to really listen to what, and I don't know how you explain how you can do that. Can you do it on purpose, or is it just in him?
Well, I think both. I think both. If he sensed, well, he was the guy, you know, that school, that generation of players. If you didn't know your bridge or something, he would humiliate you in the bandstand. You know, he would say nasty things in front of the audience to you, you know, and you would shrink. You know, but that's the way they were. You know, they were, you know, they were tough that way. So you didn't want to play a tune you didn't know along with him. But yeah, his strength, it's just all the years and experience he played. You know, he was so used to playing on certain chord progressions, or you know, or not. You know, he just knew what to do at the time. He's one of the greatest lead alto players of our time, and him and Quincy Jones, especially, did a lot of stuff together. But yeah, you know, he would be also the kind of guy that would, oh, check these changes out on this bridge. You should check these changes out. You know, so he was always teaching as well. You know, and I found out with a lot of the great players, they are always willing to give you help. And Dave Liebman was like that. This other saxophone player, George Young, Al Cohn gave me opportunities, you know. Oh, very lucky, you know, to be able to play gigs and be on the bandstand with these gentlemen and move forward, you know, have that experience, you know.
What were there down years and up years, or parts of decades that you could make a living, I won't say easier. I don't think it's ever
Yeah.
easy, but with
No.
less stress than others.
Yeah. I mean, I think I kind of where I fall into place there is like the tail end of a lot of the success in the music business, where there were a lot of gigs. And gigs kind of died in New York City as well. A lot of the clubs, Philadelphia. I used to play in Philly. I played in New York. There were clubs, always places to play. Even in this area, Northeast Pennsylvania, there were always clubs, live music, and that's all changed. There's too much, I think, too much media, and people don't need to do it. And now you got AI, so I think the tough time is now. You know, um, I don't know where it's going. I mean, I know a lot of songwriters are upset with the AI, and I mean, it's easy to have a band in a hologram now. You know? So, I mean, you miss the human factor, unfortunately. There are some glitches. I don't know much about AI, but I know there's some glitches with it. And to me, I think there'll always be at least in my hopes, that there'll always be people out there that want to hear live musicians perform off the cuff, you know, ad lib and go where it goes, whether it be free or song form or.
So, with that in mind, if you're in a position where you get asked advice by a young, hopeful bassist, do you have anything that you would say to them now, perhaps that you wouldn't have had to say 30 years ago?
Uh, yeah, it's not good news, unfortunately. I tell them, if they're heading into college, to definitely search out another degree, to do something else than performance, because performing live music is almost impossible today. If you get into a great school, one of the great schools, Eastman or Berkeley or Texas, Denton, Texas. Uh, you'll meet network people, and maybe that way you could, hook up for some great gigs, some concerts and stuff like that, and it's lucky, it's the luck of the draw more than ever now. And yeah, I would say, don't depend on making a living. I was lucky. I was able to do it and raise a family, but today, oh, it's really,
Well,
I just,
you're saying
uh,
what Jerry Bergonzi said this thing almost offhand. He just said, "Well, you have to have a job to support your gigs."
yeah,
Right?
that's the truth. That's a nice light way of putting it. But it's true. I never had to do that. I don't, he was a great teacher, so, and that's what most guys do now is teaching. Oh, they're in university teaching, and I don't know, the young guy, there's some unbelievable young musicians. They have so much maturity at such a young age, and they blow my mind a lot of times how much they know. And we were talking about tune knowledge. They know a ton of tunes as well. I think Zoot would have been happy. I know these young guys know so many tunes, but they know it all. I mean, it's amazing. And well, they have so much information now at their hands. We're putting a needle on the record basically and scratching up every record we owned, to learn what we needed to learn.
Did you have a short list of bass players that said, like, oh, I want to sound like that?
Well, if I would put Scott LaFar up there, I put Charlie Hayden up there, I put Dave Holland. There was just so many. Paul Chambers, I was really into. Ron Carter. Oh, there's a lot. There's a lot of great young players. I love the Swedish bass player Anders Jorman. He's a newer guy now. Mike Foreman. Speaking of my peers, uh, Steve Laspina. Steve Gilmore was a big influence on me because he was part of Phil Wood's group. Also, Bill Goodwin. Bill Goodwin. I hooked up with him, and we had a guitar trio with our late great friend Vic Jewers. That was the first record I ever did, was through Bill. Oh, that was a really great hookup for me.
There's another video I saw, coincidentally, close to me now, the Bop Shop,
Oh,
and
yeah.
there's a video of you playing. First of all, I'm going to take a guess at the song. I don't know if you remember the incident, but I think you were playing Stevie Wonder's "Overjoyed."
Oh, yeah, we've played that, but I don't remember playing it at the Bob Shop.
Well, the reason I think you did is because
Oh,
you were in your solo playing little parts of the melody as if
oh,
you were reminding everybody, here's the song, in case you forgot.
yeah, yeah. Well, I often do things like that because I can't play eighth notes. I try to, but I'm not as near as good as horn player, piano player. So I use melody a lot in my solos, Uh, I definitely or try to make up a new melody off of it. But when you listen to Phil Woods or Al Cohen and the real tune masters, they used the melody very much as well. They definitely the phrasing from the melody alone was a big part of their thing.
Yeah.
The
Well,
rhythmic phrasing.
I can tell that that's been an influence on you because you would play a melodic lick and then you'd play it again. And if you did it a third time, you would like alter it a bit as if,
Yeah,
yeah, twice as good, three times you better, do something to develop it or what. But I did want to ask in this particular gig, during your solo, the piano player was just hitting a chord probably every four beats very quietly. I heard
mm,
nothing from the drummer. Now, I'm not sure if there was a drummer, but
mm.
the question I'm finally going to ask is what do you like accompaniment wise when it's time for the bass solo?
Sometimes I like not to be accompanied at all, and that gives me total freedom. And guys I play with a lot will give me the freedom to do that, you know. And it's up to me to make something happen. And sometimes I do, and sometimes I need help, you know. And they'll sense it and they'll come back in, on the bridge or something. And oh, here we go, help Tony, But a lot of times I'll go by myself. I like, of course, to be able to hear myself because a lot of times you play with people and they're playing over you, and it's just hard to get your message across if they're doing that and they're busy. So give me my space. That's all. And piano players and guitar players are such great accompanists usually. They work a lot with singers, so and horn players, that's what they do every day. So
Excuse me. I've heard other bass players say the opposite. Like,
hmm.
don't you dare go to that hi hat thing during the bass solo.
Oh, well, yeah, some guys are real sticklers on what they want to hear. I'm open because you could throw me an idea and that gives me another place to go. Oh, okay. I hear that I'm going there. So instead of the old, my bag of tricks, okay, well, I'm going to throw this trick in here, so it's nice sometimes to get a little bit of boost from somebody, or a harmony, Oh man, you played too much of that, Here, try this, seven flat five chord or whatever it is, shove this in your face, whole tone scale, something different, anything. So I don't mind that, as long as I can hear it and it's a helper, but when you play with people a lot, you get used to each other. You learn what to do and not to do.
Did you have sort of an alarming moment the first time you played gigs with a, a girl singer, a woman singer, to find out that a lot of those tunes that you already knew were now like a fourth or fifth away? Was that an issue?
Oh, different keys.
Different keys, yeah.
Yeah, that's sometimes, but most of the time on bass, it's not a big problem because of our the way the bass is set up. Uh, it's just basically playing the same finger patterns, but moving your hand to a different area. It's not like you have to play the black keys or whatever they go through with madness with saxophones and trumpet. So it's
Right.
just basically playing the same lick, but sliding the neck to a different place, you know. So it's easier for us. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you have to play the right note. I've screwed some singers up.
What was it like? Was it this Betty Buckley? Was it that
Yeah.
ensemble experience? Was that like
Say,
a
yeah, say it
band?
again.
Was that a quartet or was it a larger thing?
Oh, there was different. There was a lot of different. When we started with her, she ended up getting Kenny Werner to do musical arrangements for her. So he would bring in some friends. We had synthesizer, we had violin, we had Billy Drews on whatever horns he was playing. You know, could be flute, whatever, clarinet to alto to tenor, and so it in guitar a couple times they would use drums, sometimes drums and percussion. Well, we played with Jamie Haddad, who was a great drummer and percussionist, and Jamie and I played with her, and then we did Dave Liebman as well in the beginning, in the early 90s, late 80s. So there was always that. She was big into colors as like Dave Liebman and improv, but it was still basically playing for a singer, I mean, there wasn't like the band opening up and, you know, hitting hard, we were still playing a show for her. But it was really beautiful stuff because Kenny had such a great command on harmony, And when they did duos, man, that was a mind blower because he would just open up like this, turning on the faucet of the sink, and he would throw everything out there, And see, she would be right on it. She'd come right back in. I mean, I'd be lost sometimes. We'd take it so far out. And she nailed it. She was like right in every beat with him. It was great. It was a good experience. And we also did pops. She had some of his tunes arranged and orchestrated by Don Sebesky. So, top flight guys, and beautiful with orchestra. But then you're not, you got to put your Scott LaFaro licks in the back, in the back, and you're playing half notes, but you're loving it because it's so beautiful. My Ship was one of the great arrangements Kenny did. Beautiful. Yeah.
How do you get up for a studio date over the years? Is playing in the studio sort of a different mindset than being in a live situation?
Oh my God, yeah. I'm still trying to get used to being in the studio. I've had experiences playing with real studio guys. This one saxophone player, well, a lot of them, but I mean, George Young, this one guy I played with a lot. That was what he did. He excelled at it. So when he did so many sessions, so when he would take another take on something, he would always improve. I mean, he just knew how he was so defined. And it's like playing under a microscope. So your every note, your every breath, everything is so documented that it's nerve-wracking. Live performance, you get to let loose and not worry as much. So we all want that live recording because we all want that raw. But it's one of the hardest things to do is to get a great live recording, and get a great sound. There's always something that messes it up. I don't, whatever it could be, feedback, something broke. But
Somebody
yeah,
yelled
I
something to the audience,
I
and
prefer playing a club, or that's where I can, really, really get going. And then also over like a big stage. I like a small, intimate club. That's my favorite hit.
that's why the Delaware Water Gap gig there was right up your alley. Do you have a
Oh yeah,
you have a spot on
absolutely.
stage that you usually like to stand? I know I've heard bass players
Yeah.
sing, "Oh, I want to be on your hi-hat side," or something like that.
Yeah, a lot of guys that way. I like to be in the middle for sure. Between whatever the chordal instrument is and the drums, and I don't have to be on the hi-hat side. When I'm locking in my time, I'm listening to what the right hand, or not everybody's a right-handed drummer, but uh, the time. where the quarter note is coming from. If we're playing swing and jazz, I want to know that's where I get the time from, his hands more than that hi-hat 2 and 4. So I'm listening for that. And that lets me know if I'm in sync with his quarter note. If I'm a little behind, I'm a little bit. And every drum is different. I play with guys that really are on top of the beat, and you really got to push. And then you get used to playing with a guy like that. And then you play with someone that plays a little behind the beat, and you're pushing him, and you don't want to push him. You want to relax and breathe. I noticed that playing with some tenor players, and I was pushing them. I must have been playing with Lieb, and it was, fast, and I had to step back and say, no, you're pushing them. You got a big space for every beat. Galper talked about that too, Al Galper, when I played with him about the big beat. That
Big
was that
beat.
was his whole thing, the
Yeah.
big beat. So, there's a lot of room in that big beat. So you got a guy that's playing. I mean, you don't want to drag the tempo either, but you have to you got to leave space for a guy like that. That's the way he plays. I don't want to crush him.
I remember hearing Lewis Hayes, and I think it was Ron Carter on bass at the Iridium. This was
Yeah,
quite a few years ago, and Lewis Hayes was so on top of the beat that I couldn't understand how the song did not speed up like
yeah,
significantly. How is that
yeah,
possible? Man, he just
yeah,
like constant
yeah,
push, yet
yeah,
not speeding up, I guess.
yeah. Well, some people set it up. There's a big circle. So you could be a little bit ahead, or you could be a little behind. We could be right in the middle. I always kind of felt Paul Chambers and uh, that group of Miles Davis were kind of right on the beat. And when you listen to Elvin Jones and Jimmy Garrison, I always felt they were just a little behind. They left more room for Elvin's big circular triplety things that he did. And and when you listen to Ron Carter and Tony Williams, they were flying ahead, man. They were definitely on top of the beat. you know. And they did get faster at times. Things did get a little faster, but I never bothered me. It's the excitement of the music at the time, and the things they did. Man, they changed the grooves and um of course we all adored those bands, So
Indeed.
yeah.
Did you ever have what we might call a train wreck, a gig that sticks in your mind as, oh, I wish I could do that again, or I wish that had
Well,
never
always
always?
there's always oh, there's always something that I wish I could have done better. And there's times where I felt really good about it, especially when you listen back if something's recorded. If you listen to it fresh and go, oh boy, sorry I did that one. Oh, here it comes again. You're so used to yourself. Then 6 months down the road, you'll hear it and you'll hear it in a different light, and say, well, it's not too bad. But I've had train wrecks, that's for sure. Fortunately, nothing at high meaning. I'm trying to find a word. Top shelf gig. That
Oh,
hasn't happened to me
yeah.
because usually when you're doing those gigs, you're very well rehearsed as well. When we go and we work on the song form and whatever the tunes are, and really
Mhm.
work on it. There's always little flubs here and there. It's not perfection.
Yeah.
But in a lot of ways, our music isn't perfect that way. Not like classical. We're open, and you blow something that might open the door for something else. You never know.
That you wouldn't have
Those,
played. That yeah,
yeah,
yeah. If you
yeah.
hadn't sort of misstepped.
No, we didn't think of that before. Let's go there. Let's do it. And that's fun. That's what makes it so much fun. All little things like that. And being different. Every time we play is different. It's never quite the same. Even though the head and the chords are the same. You know,
Yeah.
the inflection is different.
If I was sitting in that couch with you and you had CDs or LPs, and I said, put on something that you're really proud of, that you're playing
Oh,
was really what might you pick?
wow. That's a hard question for me. I have to really, I should have thought about that before. no, man, I've done a lot of stuff and I would pinpoint probably Dave Liebman in some things. There was a band that we played with, that he got me on, which was with the two saxophones and bass and drums, and that was a fun band. I would probably put that on the top of the list in a lot of ways because it was so open and you know, no chordal instrument. So I'm more open that way, and I felt I did a great job. So if I was going to pick something, it'd probably be something like that. But I'd have to go through the archives. I don't know. It's a hard question.
There was an interesting, fairly brief video of Dave Liebman talking about free jazz, and he said some helpful things about it, but he admitted that the average listener a lot of times won't like it.
No.
So I'm thinking if you're a bass player and you're playing, this term free jazz is arguable, but
Mhm.
it seems to me that you're the person in the group that can decide where to go harmonically if you
Well,
want to. Is it hard not to go to some key?
yeah. Well, I think when I'm playing free, I I treat it like I'm playing on a tune a lot of times. I'm listening for tones and key centers, and I hear, sometimes it's colors and noise. I don't know how to describe it. Uh, white noise. It can be, it can go anywhere, you know. But it's everybody doing it together. Everybody trying to get to a place where the concentration is so hard in free playing, at least in my experience. I used to play a lot when I was young, and we would do all free playing for like an hour or so, or maybe more, and then uh, take a break, come back and play free again, and try every kind of color you could think of on your instrument, to utilize soft, loud, high, fast, whatever. But and the thing I found out when I was playing free is uh, I wasn't afraid to try anything. Where on chord changes, you clam up, you're scared, unless you have like a great, you know, list of repertoire and licks, that you can run to immediately and get going, get yourself started. But in the beginning, you're not afraid to try things. So then we would finish playing free, and then we would play like tunes like Bill Evans Trio, and I felt a lot more at ease playing on those tunes because I just spent all this time concentrating, and then I'd find out, oh, well, I didn't do so good on that part. That's something to practice. I'll go home and I'll practice that section of the tune and get better at it. And so I thought it was really helpful. I don't know if I answered your question.
I think you did it. It has to do, I believe, with your concept of what is a mistake,
Yeah, absolutely.
or are there mistakes?
There's no mistake in free. We used to always end the thing with this band I was telling you about would leave free ballad. In the encore, we'd always do a free ballad. And I loved it because it was,
Who would
and you were
start it?
talking about leading the harmony. I could in
Who
that situation.
who would start it?
Well, we would just start. He would just, drop the bell of the saxophone. We would just start, you know. So it's open, it could be solo sax and then the other sax joins and I come in, or we all come in at the same time, or he'll con tempo and then we just play free. And it was always short and sweet, but it was sometimes beautiful,
I can imagine that if you recorded those things, you might actually be able to extract something and write a tune, make it into a
Oh, I think so. Sure.
yeah.
Sure. There's definitely bits and pieces you could write from. And he did. He wrote a lot of Lee wrote a lot of things like line writing, which I try to do from him. I would do the same, atonal or just to use that as an idea, so that you can get started on something, then improvise off of that melody or whatever you want to call it, atonal melody, and then you would have a bookend, so you could play that thing where just a semblance, on out, so you have a beginning and an end, but it would be atonal, and that's not everybody for everybody's ears either. My family wouldn't like it.
I think you were involved in with Dave in Coltrane tributes, Coltrane
Yeah,
themed records, recordings.
yeah, he did Coltrane's meditation. It was every 5 years he would do it, and I got to do a few of them. I got to do them in Europe. And I got to play double bass with Reggie Workman, for instance. The one we recorded was with Cecil McBee. I did it once in Water Gap with Michael Formanek, that both of us played. So there were a few episodes of that he would do, and his wife, Karis, transcribed the melodies. And so we had that form to fall out. Remember when we played with, it was Reggie Workman and Billy Hart was the other drummer. Jamie had died. And it was two drummers, two bass players, and Sonny Fortune, I remember. And we next day we're at breakfast, and I'm sitting there, and Reggie Workman comes in, and I was thrilled to be sitting with him and Sonny Fortune. Coltrane didn't write that shit out. He didn't write it out. He was upset that there was written music, but I took care of that. He didn't have to. I just let him go and do what he does. And I took care of taking, mopping up the floor and you know. So, but it was a great experience, and in Europe too, where it, it works there, and it works in New York too. Not everywhere, but you know.
Rubbing elbows with those gentlemen from that earlier era is so enriching.
Yeah. Oh, it is. You get on a bus, and you know some of these greats come and they start talking stories, and I mean, it just you feel like you realize they're human, and it's so great you know to experience what they experience, But when you think about the older black musicians with the racial thing they had to go through, I don't have a clue what that was. I'll
Mhm.
never know what that is. But they never. I mean, my experience is that I didn't feel that ever racial thing with them. They always made me feel welcome into the music, And Clark Terry, he was a great storyteller. We were on the bus once, and Lieb was a really good. He'd be a good MC on a talk show, because he would ask the questions to get him going, And it was really fun on that bus ride, to the venue to be with Clark Terry and hear his stories, Miles' drug addiction or whatever, It was
Yeah,
great. It was great to be. And he was, what a great spirit, man. Wow.
I was
Uh,
able to have some of that spirit next to me in this project I do, so I know what you're talking about.
yeah. 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 They lived a special life,
Mhm.
and we try to make them proud. Hopefully.
What gigs your current calendar? What's it look like these days?
Well, nothing major. I do these little gigs around me here, like, little restaurants, breweries, community concerts. I do church gigs with this uh, not far from me. There's a reverend. He's originally from New York State, Bill Carter. He has a band, and he connects his sermon. He's a Presbyterian minister, spirituality with jazz, and he's very, very into it. And he writes some beautiful stuff. So we record records, and we're going to Georgia and the end of September, and you know that's about it. I mean, Deerhead, the festival that they just had in Scranton, the Water Gap Festival is coming up, so there'll be a lot of musicians playing at that. So it's small community concerts, clubs, restaurant, Deerhead Inn,
Yeah.
Lafayette Bar in Easton. I'll be there Friday. So, I've been busy. It's been a decent summer, and I'm. Whenever I get a gig. They're not always pristine, great gigs. People talk over you. You got to fight through that, but we're playing together, and I feel good that we're playing.
Right.
And we have good moments playing. It's worth it.
So when folks eventually watch this video on our Phileas Jazz YouTube channel, I'm going to suggest that they Google you and a fellow named Joe Wagner, guitar player,
Hmm.
and you were
Yeah.
playing a tune Afro Blue,
Yeah.
just the two of you.
Yeah.
It was way hip.
Oh, good.
He was
I
playing
don't
like
remember it that much, but
his,
yeah.
you both were playing your instruments like they were drums for a while.
Oh, good. I like that. I like opening up that way.
Yeah, and then it was just very spontaneous and creative, and every once in a while, getting back to that melody thing, you,
Yeah.
you'd hop up to the melody and play ba da ba da 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 da,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
made for like it. I don't know. There's markers in music, I think, that help if your mind is wandering. All of a sudden,
Yeah.
someone plays something, and you go, "Oh yeah!"
Yeah.
It sort of brings you back in.
We do that often, especially for drum solo when everything drops out and it's just him. I mean, I'm not talking about trading eights, I'm talking about whole song forms. So yeah, we'll drop in whatever little rhythmic entity there is to bring into the bridge or something, or it might be something at the end of the tune, and then we'll just wait for that and we'll hit it every time. Just so that and I think it helps the audience too, to bring them into, yeah, we're listening. We're not chewing gum and running to the bar. And I've had that happen to me too during bass solo, where, the horn players would run to the bar and have a taste, and I'm doing my solo and there's no one there to bring me out of it. That used to get me a little mad.
I would think so. I
Come
mean,
on, man, listen. Dave Liebman, I listen to every note. The Phil Woods listen to every note. I mean, those when you get that level of player, they there wasn't one breath of music they missed. They were in there. And then the next day in the bus, talking about remembering what was good and what wasn't good. They just were constantly. I mean, Lee was that way, definitely, and constantly on it. Never gave it up. And you'd sometimes go, uh-oh, what's it going to say now? Letter A on, mostly the chord player. Mostly the chord players got it. I didn't get much. I was lucky. I did my job. He wanted me to break things up. He didn't want me to stay constant. And he wanted the drummer to be very open to any kind of groove change or just something to make the music exciting. And then colors. He was big into colors. So whatever effects a guitar or piano would use or chords to change colors. That was what the band was based on. So it was
there you
it was a great
go.
experience. Yeah. Lucky to have been doing that for 30 odd years.
30 odd
Yeah.
years. So, last question, sort of fill in finish the sentence. Making a living as a professional musician has been.
Oh, has been it's been beautiful. But I feel very lucky to have done what I did. And I raised three kids, and I didn't have to go get that proverbial day job. I did some teaching, but I never did it as heavy as other friends of mine did it. And so and for me, it was always word of mouth. I'm not a big computer uh, self-promoter. I'm not into that. Uh, I'm old fashioned that way, I guess. I still like pen and paper, and I'm not the old everything on the computer and the iPhone escapes me. I'm not there, so I'm going to miss out on AI, I guess. I don't know if I'm going to be part of that whole scene. But I feel very lucky. You know, I guess that was run on sentences
No,
there to answer.
that was a fine answer because you could have gone, you could have gone the other way. Um, you could have been just like incredibly hard and don't do it unless
Oh no,
you know.
no, I think everybody that loves to play should play. Phil Woods would say, put a saxophone in the kid's hands instead of a gun. And it's the truth. Let him get his emotions out that way. I remember telling kids, man, when you're mad at your mother for whatever, man. You go in the room and practice for an hour and take your aggression out on your instrument, and you'll find out an hour later or so you'll feel better. It's like a way to, and you could find how you could use that on a bandstand, that anger,
Yeah,
or that joy, whatever it is.
cool.
So
Well, that's a
yeah.
great way to wrap up our conversation. I really enjoyed chatting with you, Tony.
Oh, Mark, it was a pleasure. The same, and I hope you could see more than just my bouncing ball
Yeah,
here.
it's all right. It was
I
active.
wasn't sure of the video. Yeah. So,
All right, I'll just pause here and we'll say our goodbyes.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.